Josep Borrell said European foreign affairs ministers gave their green light to reactivate an EU border mission at Rafah. On a state visit to Germany, French President Emmanuel Macron told a crowd in Dresden that voters should wake up to fight the rise of far-right parties across Europe. European foreign affairs ministers gave their green light to reactivate an EU border mission at Rafah, High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs Josep Borrell said. Israel faced new condemnation over strikes on Rafah that local health officials say killed at least 45 Palestinians.
I proposed to the ministers, they gave me green light, the political green light to reactivate EUBAM, our mission, control border mission in Rafah, which has been sleeping for years, not active. This could play a useful role in supporting the entry of people into Gaza, enter in and out.
Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto said that such strikes will have long-standing repercussions. Israel is spreading hatred, he said. He also added that he would have acted differently. Turkish President Erdogan condemned the deadly strikes on Rafah over the weekend. The Turkish leader has stepped up his criticism of Israel following its military offensive in Gaza, accusing it of carrying out war crimes and genocide, something Israel denies.
Spain will recognise Palestine as a state. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez trumpeted from the Prime Minister's palace in Madrid. Cabinet ministers will vote on approving the, quote, historic recognition on Tuesday.
With this decision, Spain joins the more than 140 countries that already recognize Palestine. This is a historic decision that has a single goal: to contribute to achieving peace between Israelis and Palestinians. The recognition of Palestine is not against anyone, least of all Israel, a friendly nation that Spain values and holds in high regard and with whom we aim to foster the strongest possible relationship.
Sanchez said the decision is harmonious with global values.
Our position is aligned with the UN Security Council resolutions 242 and 338 and with the position of the European Union.
No major Western power has recognised the Palestinian state.
The state of Palestine must be viable, with the West Bank and Gaza connected by a corridor and with East Jerusalem as its capital, and must be unified under the legitimate government of the Palestine National Authority.
Norway and Ireland announced they would also recognise sovereignty.
Poland has unveiled a massive plan to bolster its military defense capabilities. Together with NATO, the country is going to beef up anti-drone surveillance as well as on-the-ground fortifications and barriers.
Żadne państwo nie powinno mieć żadnych złudzeń, że będziemy bronić każdego centymetra naszej ojczyzny, że jesteśmy do tego przygotowani. Będziemy tą strategię odstraszania i obrony NATO z całą skrupulatnością realizować.
The package of measures, called Shield East, will be rolled out along its 700-kilometer border with Russia and Belarus and is expected to be enforced by 2028. Poland's defense minister stressed it's going to be the biggest program to strengthen NATO's eastern flank since 1945. The system is expected to cost over 2 billion euros and is part of a joint regional defense infrastructure with the Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia. Poland, one of the most vocal countries against Russia's invasion of Ukraine, says it's been targeted with hostile actions by Moscow and Minsk. Authorities claim that includes cyber attacks, attempted arson and migrants being pushed illegally across the border. An attempt, they say, to destabilize the EU through one of its members.
NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg has urged members to reconsider limits on sending certain weapons to Ukraine. He told reporters in Bulgaria at the NATO Parliamentary Assembly that Russia's attack on Ukraine violates international law and that Ukraine has the right to defend itself.
that I think the time has come to consider some of these restrictions. And some allies have lifted restrictions, other allies have not. My message is that I think we should now consider those restrictions, because by having too many restrictions, we are tying one hand of the Ukrainian armed forces on their back, because they're reducing their capability to defend themselves.
The issue of sending some military support to Ukraine as it battles the Russian invasion is controversial. Some states are reluctant to provide Kyiv with longer range, more powerful arms that could strike targets deep inside Russia, as they fear this could escalate tensions and risk dragging Europe into a wider war. Others say, however, that Ukraine needs all the firepower it can get to fend off a larger, better armed and resourced opponent.
On the second day of a state visit to Germany, French President Emmanuel Macron told a crowd in Dresden that voters and leaders should wake up to fight the rise of the far-right parties across Europe.
Regardons autour de nous la fascination pour les régimes autoritaires. Regardons en Europe le moment illibéral que nous vivons, où beaucoup regardent et se disent finalement, à quelques kilomètres d'ici, finalement, prenons l'argent de l'Europe, mais oublions l'indépendance des juges. Prenons l'argent de l'Europe, mais oublions la liberté de la presse. Prenons l'argent de l'Europe, mais oublions la diversité de la culture. Prenons l'argent de l'Europe, mais oublions l'autonomie des universités et la liberté académique. Devenue tout entière, Phoenix et leçon d'espoir, une ville d'histoire. Et partout dans nos démocraties, ces idées prospèrent, poussées par les extrêmes et en particulier l'extrême droite. Ce vent mauvais souffle en Europe, c'est une réalité. Alors réveillons-nous.
Left-wing politician Sarah Wagenknecht splintered off from the German Die Linke party last year to form her own party. The Sarah Wagenknecht Alliance, Reason and Justice, BSW, vows to stop weapon deliveries into Ukraine and could promise to split the AfD vote, potentially winning 7 seats in the EU election.
Wir stehen für wirtschaftliche Vernunft, soziale Gerechtigkeit, Frieden und Meinungsfreiheit. Das sind die 4 großen Themen, die wir auch für die Bundesrepublik formuliert haben in unserem Gründungsmanifest. Und das ist natürlich auch das, was wir in Europa wollen.
Deswegen fordern wir als Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, Aktiengeschäfte von Politikern müssen öffentlich werden, liebe Freundinnen und Freunde.
Wagenknecht's strategy of promising higher taxes on large companies and wealthier people seems to be working, as the newly formed party won its first victory in local Thüringer elections, the very first election it's run in.
Ob wir sie wählen, das weiß ich noch nicht, aber viele Dinge, die Sarah Wagenknecht sagt, die sind so, leider. Und da die Politik in den vergangenen Jahren so kümmerlich versagt hat, deshalb gibt es auch diese Partei AfD.
Ich bin völlig Ihrer Meinung und freue mich, dass endlich eine Alternative zur offiziellen Politik vorhanden ist, die sich sehr unterscheidet von zum Beispiel so angeblich hochgepriesenen Nationalisten. Sie ist sehr, sehr vernünftig, sehr schlau, wirtschaftlich orientiert.
BSW could become the top left-wing force in the EU Parliament, seeking to form a new bloc. Yet this could spell trouble for Die Linke due to BSW's strict immigration policies and could impede any merger efforts.
The Sarah Wagenknecht party marries socialist economic policies with conservative attitudes towards immigration, but will this be enough to steer the voters away from populist authoritarian parties in the EU elections next month? Liv Stroud in Hamburg for Euronews.
Dairy farmers have gathered in Brussels to call for a fair income. They first and foremost want an EU-wide regulation to prohibit selling milk at prices that do not cover the production costs. As Karsten Poulsen from the European Milk Board explains, a litre of milk is sold on average at around 40 cents in Europe, while production costs around 50 cents.
We have been looking at the Spanish law that they have done in the UTP, where it's forbidden to sell products below cost of production in all parts of the chain. So from farmer to, if it's milk we're talking about, from farmer or milk producer to the dairy, from dairy to retail.
In some countries like Italy, the gap between production costs and selling price is even bigger.
La necessità oggi media di un'azienda italiana è intorno ai 60-65 centesimi per litro. Attualmente, mediamente, i produttori italiani ne ricavano 50. Abbiamo ancora una forbice di 15 centesimi.
Dairy farmers also ask to be more involved in the drafting of the Green Deal's measures for the agricultural sector.
La manifestazione è partita dal Parlamento europeo di Bruxelles per raggiungere Palazzo Berlaymont, la sede della Commissione europea. I produttori di latte hanno già avuto dei colloqui col commissario europeo all'agricoltura Janusz Wojciechowski e ora vogliono mettere pressione alle istituzioni in vista del voto delle elezioni europee.
Residents in northern Armenia start assessing the damage after being hit by the heaviest flooding in decades, as Russia sends troops to help tackle the flooding, according to a post on the Telegram app. At least 4 people have died and entire towns have been cut off following the collapse of bridges and flooded highways caused by heavy rain overflowing multiple rivers. While people were forced to flee their homes, the flooding caused disruption along Armenia's main border crossing with Georgia.